Hello everyone. Hello. Looks like my lag is significant today. Oh, there we go. It's not so bad. Good to see everyone. Welcome. Hey, Sarah, Nanette. You are welcome, Sarah. I'm just glad that it's working out. Hi, Teresa. Hi, Becky. Nanette. Hi, Nancy Dale. Nancy Lore. Good to see you guys. Hi, Laura. Hi, Noeet. It's really good to see everybody. I'm going to get rid of my phone here before you know who starts talking to me. Hi, Nancy. We got lots of Nancys in the house today. That's great. Hi, Joni. Beth. Me too, Nanette. I love Sarah's YouTube channel. Sarah, My Serenity Crafts, she has some great things that she does. And her interests, I think her interests rival's not the right word at all. I think the span of what she's interested in equals what I'm interested in. We do different things, but I think we both, I'm just guessing, Sarah, but I think we both must have short attention spans. What do you think? Hello, Barbara Clark. Train Guy. Hello. Hi, Sandy. Hi, Virginia. Hi, Ellie. Let's see, Barbara Clark. Lisa. Hi, Mina. Hi, Denise. Hi, Louise. Good to see everyone. So glad you're here. Today is our last official day for Beyond Mandala Madness, although we're going to push it over into Friday. Hi, Ann. Hi, Sheila. Hi, Ina. Me too, Sarah. Kimberly. Hi, Krissa. Thank you, Krissa. Hi, Debbie. We're going to push it over into Friday because this mandala today has too many subtleties or complexities or whatever you want to call it to get it all done today. So we will be finishing this up on Drama Free Friday, which means, hi, Linda, which means some of our regular Drama Free Friday audience will be rolling their eyes back in their head. That's okay. They can deal with it, right? And then Sunday will be our last planned show and share. So there you go. So that's the schedule. That's the docket. Oh, thank you, Anne. That's very sweet of you. Same to you. Oh, you can't. They've changed that. Yeah, they've changed that, Barbara. So you have to type it in. Yeah, for whatever reason, they won't let you do that. Something they changed. Yes, just Fridays. Okay, so we're gonna, in the way of a warm up, we're gonna just review what we've done so far. Get rid of the coffee. Yesterday, I had some preemptive stuff that had to be dealt with, and so because of that, I didn't have quite as much time to do some things. Hi, Dorothy. Hi, Nancy. So if I miss your comment in the chat, it's just because we're pushing through. Okay, so let me get set up here so you can see. So the little warm-up pieces that we did, these the first ones we did, I'm not going to go through again because that's actually part of the class or the course, but these are the ones that we did just to kind of get everybody going. I know, Barbara, it was really handy. It really was, but they definitely changed it for some reason. I'm sure they have their reasons. So anyway, these are 4.5-inch square pieces of watercolor paper, and then we just dropped some different things, different inks and so forth on these. So this one was Distress Oxide Reinker and a little bit of regular Distress Reinker. And so they're just on here, and then you can turn them around and, you know, see which way they feel the best. And, you know, you can do whatever you want to with them. They're just little warm-up things. If you never use them, it's fine. Yeah? If you never use them for anything, it's okay. They just get you going with your pens, and it gives you a chance to try things out. It gives you a chance to look at the shapes, and most of these freeform type things, very frequently they'll turn out looking like flowers. Not always. This one was Distress Reinker, just regular Distress Reinkers, not the oxides, I think. And this one, I didn't mark on it what it was. So, but you can see when you turn them around, if you know, one direction will look better to you than a different one. They do kind of look like sea anemones, don't they? They're kind of fun. They really are. They're a lot of fun. I really love doing these, and I make cards out of them usually. So I've not inked the edges or anything, but generally speaking, I'll put a colorful cardstock mat, just a little one, around the edge, and then I'll put them on square cards. Now, square cards cost more to mail, just so you know. Don't put just a regular stamp on it and think you're going to get away with it, because you're not. Yeah, our geodes, yeah. Becky, that's right. They do kind of look like geodes. Sorry, I'm probably not going to see a lot of the chat today. Hi, Katrina. So every once in a while, I'll get to look over and see you, but I don't necessarily, because of the pace we're going to work out today, you might or might not get a question answered until we get on into the class. This one I like a lot. I like the spirals and the white dots and stuff. This is how they started. These were just blobs of color. So this was Distress Reinker. Yeah, Distress Reinkers on a damp background. This one was Dr. P.H. Martin's India ink, which, you know, I wasn't crazy about that, but I'll do something with it. This one I like a lot. These are the Distress Reinkers. I really love how the Distress Reinkers work. They're just like liquid goodness. Liquid goodness. And this one was Sukaniko All-Purpose Ink. Again, the color, when you look at the difference in the color saturation from the reinkers versus some of the just inks, it's a completely different kind of experience. And this one was F&W Pearlescent inks. And this, I don't think you'll ever be able to pick it up, but this has a very iridescent, shimmery kind of quality to it. So this is how we started with different ideas. There's no right, no wrong, doesn't matter. It's just, if you have a 9x12 pad of watercolor paper, you can get 4 out of there and a little bit left. And then this was the one that we worked on the other day. I think it was on Monday maybe. We worked on this one. And this one, I just wanted to show you. I didn't finish it yet. But this one, hi Kathy. What I did was to cut it out. So I cut it out of the background. And then I'm going to add a stem to it. Similarly to the way that several of you have done that you showed during the show and share. So, you know, just because I didn't like the way it looked on the square, so I thought, let's cut it out and change it up the way I want. So I did. So there's just a close-up of what I did to detail it. And is it done? Well, we don't know. It might be. It might not be. And this one, what I want you to see is I tilt it. See that how it shimmers? That's the gold Jelly Roll pins. That's what they're called, is gold. I don't know if they still make those, but anyway, I have them, so I thought I'd show them to you. Hi, Angie. Hi, Fiona. Good to see you, Fiona. Hope you're doing well. Okay, so that is what we did, warm-up wise. So we are going to get into the next, sorry, I just made my camera really mad. It gets really mad at me sometimes. when I go too fast, it gets real frustrated with me. Okay, so what we have here is just a piece of plain cardstock. On Monday, at the end of Monday's show class, we did the background. We prepped the background for what you're going to do on this mandala, but you're never going to be able to see what I'm showing if I do it on the prepared background. So we're going to do it on plain piece of cardstock. Hello, Linda McAllister. And then I have one finished on this. I have several of them in process, but I have one ready to go for the next step on the Speckledy watercolor background. You can do it. You can do it any way you want. If you want to do it on colored cardstock just to practice, you're welcome to do that, or you can do it on the Speckledy background, whatever your background ended up to be. Okay? So it's up to you, whatever you want to do. Or you can just take notes and watch. I am going to be using a circle protractor. If you don't have a circle protractor, you have the semicircle protractor, you'll just have to make some adjustments. It's not hard. You'll just have to make some adjustments. I'm going to use the circle. Okay, this happens to be 8.5 by 8.5. Let's see, what size was this? 8 1/4. Okay, so technically this should be 8 1/4 by 8 1/4. Let me cut this down. Let me cut this down because I cut it at 8.5 because I want to do it the way that I told you guys. Hold on a minute. Get my bearings here. 8 1/4. Apologies that I didn't look at my own piece. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut this with scissors because I don't want to go in there where the cats are. Because they're being good. They're in the sunshine. They're being have, as the word goes. Yeah, you can do screen captures and that will work. That is a good way to do it too. Okay, so I'm just going to cut off 1/4 inch both directions. It may or may not be square because it rarely is if you don't use a rotary cutter or a paper trimmer or a paper cutter of some kind. It's not likely to be square, but I want to come down to the size that my finished sample is, which was 8 1/4 inches square. On watercolor paper, this is just regular cardstock from the craft store. So that's what I'm using. Okay, so we need to find the center. This is going to be a 9-section mandala. So the first thing I got to do is find the center. So 8 1/4 means the center is going to be at 4 1/8 inches. So I'm going to do this fancy thing, and it's called, I'm going to come from one side all the way across to about where I think the middle is, and I'm going to do this really darkly so that you can see. Okay, but I'm not going to go all the way across. I don't need it all the way across. So I'm just coming in from the left-hand side, and the reason for that is because that is the way my protractor is set up. You see where it says 0 over here? So that's the reason. And then I'm going to find the rest of the center, but all I need is the center. 1, 2, 3, 4 1/8, and I only need to mark the center. So there it is. Okay, so that's the setup. Then we're going to go to the protractor. Hi Lauren. Hi Vicki. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the circle protractor. This thing is worth its weight in, it's worth the price of admission, I'm telling you. And you can use it a variety of different ways. The way that I use it may not be the best way, but it's the way that works for me. So it is like $1.99. It's from the company Westcott. Okay, you see it there? Westcott. It's like $1.99. You find it in the drafting section in a craft store. All right, so I'm going to come in here so you can see a little bit closer, but understand that my square is 8 1/4 inches square, give or take a little bit. One of the things I like about this is that there's a crosshairs. Okay, there's a crosshairs, and so I can line that up right over the where I find the middle of my protractor. So a 9-section mandala. Okay, this is not heavy math. It may feel like it, but it's not. There are 360 degrees in a circle. Okay, the protractor confirms that 360 degrees in a circle. If you take 360 and you divide it by 9, guess what you get? 40. Okay, so every 40 degrees we're going to make a mark. Okay, every 40 degrees. Don't roll your eyes back in your head. It's not that hard. I am no math whiz. If I can do this, anybody can do this. And this is one of my very favorite setups for mandalas, just so you know. Okay, so 0 is over here at the left. I'm going to come to 40. And I'm going to make a mark straight out from my 40. The next one is at 80. The next one is at 120. The next one is 160. The next is 200. Do you see it's not hard math? It's not hard math. So 160, 200, 240, okay, 280, 320, and 360, which is where we put this mark over here, so I don't have to mark it. Okay, I'm going to go over those one more time, so write them down if you're not sure. 40, 80, 120, 160, 200, 240, 280, 320, and then back to 360. Not hard. Then you're done with the protractor. So you're done with the protractor. You can put it away because we're done. So we have this little spoke sort of looking thing. And now we're going to take the ruler, and I'm using the quilting ruler because I find it the easiest thing to use. If you like something else, you can use a different kind of ruler. It doesn't matter. Want something with straight lines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to match up the center and one line. The two, whatever's going over here doesn't make any difference. Don't pay any attention to that. So I'm at the mark and the center. It is worth taking your time to make sure this is lined up. Then I just go from the outer edge into the center, but stop. Don't go any further. Don't go any further. Okay, that's right, Linda. Bingo. All right, now this one is where it gets a little tricky. This mark, because when we do this, sorry, I'm having trouble picking up my stuff here. When we do this one, I purposely put these lines at an angle. Okay, I purposely put them at an angle so that I know where the point is. This is the part that touched the protractor. So I'm going to work with that point and the center. This line right here isn't going to line up with anything, so don't pay attention to it. Ignore it. So I go to the center, line it up, and draw your line. You know, when you do this on your background, you're going to do this very lightly. I'm doing it very darkly for the purposes of letting you see what I'm doing. Same thing, work yourself around the circle. Always drawing your line from the point that you made out here into the center and no further. Don't go any further than the center. Okay? Because 9, I know this is going to be this is going to be hard math here, but 9 is an odd number. So you cannot go straight across. I sound snotty. That did not come across right. You're not going to be able to go straight across the square because it's an odd number. So line it up from the outside to the middle. So do you see how my little lines are ending there? And not the entire line out here, the entire mark is not what I'm worried about, you know, and this one could be better, but you know, this is a sample. Technically, I would have been better to match this point in the center, but I didn't, so we're going to roll with it. It's a hand-drawn thing. It's a hand-drawn thing. Keep going, work your way around the circle, drawing your lines from the outer edge into the center. Don't pay any attention to any of the other marks that you've got going on in here in the middle. Doesn't matter. And the chat has absolutely stopped. I have either lulled you out of sleep, made you turn off, or everybody's busy. Could be any of the above. Any of the above. Okay, into the center. We got 2 more lines to go. 2 more lines to go. And I line the ruler up this way when I'm working so that I can see this side of it. Some people are tempted to do this, but then you got to look over it and draw. I don't find that convenient. But that's me. It might suit you a different way. Just because I show you one way does not mean it's the only way. Doesn't mean it's the only way. Hi, Debbie. You're focused on what I'm doing. Okay, that's fine. Linda McAllister's got to go get coffee. I understand. That's why I have a cup here on the table with me. Okay, so one last line here. So in the center. And draw your line. Okay? All right. So that is what we have going on. And if you've done this correctly, if you paid attention, we should be able to start here and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so put your finger on 1 and you should have 9. And it's going to look wonky to you. I'm telling you, it's going to look wonky. It's okay. That's just the way it's going to look. Once it gets cut out, in the end, and you'll get to turn it whatever direction you want to turn it, the wonkiness goes away. Okay? But when you're in this stage, in the drawing stage and all that, it's like, oh, I can't see how this is going to work out. It is truly one of my very favorite mandala setups, is the 9 section. I find it fascinating. I find it challenging, and I love it. Okay, so I'm just coming through here and erasing the any little lines, you know, that were kind of distracting me, you know, little tails of lines and that kind of stuff. I'm just kind of taking those out. Some of them, it's okay if you leave a little bit, but, you know, it's just kind of nice to clean it up a little bit. And then all this stuff in the middle, I'm going to come in and I'm going to take that out because we don't need a bunch of extra lines to confuse things. Okay, so this is what I call a map. This is what I call a 9-section map. Just keep working at it, Becky. You're going to get it. You're going to get it. You need to straighten it. I just love the way that this setup works, and it will kind of mess with you if you are one who likes everything to be, you know, like an 8-section mandala. But why should we do the same thing again and again and again, right? Let's challenge ourselves. Let's challenge ourselves. All right, so this is the setup. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to lay out our circles. Okay, so I'm going to use a compass. And here's the other thing. Like Becky said, she was having trouble because she didn't have a circle compass. If you don't want to mess with that, you know, doing the 9-section thing right now, because that's got your brain a little scrambled, which I can understand. It happens. Mine scrambles regularly. If you don't want to do that, then just do an 8-section mandala. You'll get the idea of it, and then you can go back and play around with the 9-section later if you want, or not. It's totally up to you. Okay, so I'm going to use my compass. Yeah, I like the 7, the 9. The 11's not my favorite. This is my favorite of the odd numbers. Okay, so what we want for this. All right, we're back to math. We're back to mathing again here for a minute. I know this is going to make you crazy to look at. You can't see it on that. So we're going to deal with it here for a second. What we want is about approximately, give or take a little bit, a 7-inch diameter circle. Okay, so half of 7 is 3.5, right? That's called the radius of the circle. So I'm just using my ruler to set up, put the point on the 3.5, 1, 2, 3.5, and that just ensures the easy way for me to set up my my compass to begin with. Okay, so give or take, it doesn't have to be exact, but the point of this is I have to leave room out here because a big part of this mandala is the addition of the border out here that we're going to add. We will not get to that until Friday, by the way, but this border that goes on out here, you have to leave room for it, because if you don't leave room for it, guess what? You're going to be upset because it's not there. Okay, so I'm going to put my compass point in here and draw this is my outer circle. Okay, so that is where we start. Again, it's going to mess with your head a little bit because it's not totally straight. That's okay. Challenge yourself. Challenge yourself. All right, so I'm going to do, I think it's 8 circles here. Let me count to make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, I'm doing 8 circles. That's going to make it nice and easy. So it doesn't matter if you work from the inside out or the outside in with your circles. Let's go from the inside. Let's go from the inside. So let me check and see I'll give you rough measurements here so that you'll know. So I'm going to check it against my ruler because I am working off of one that's already finished. Otherwise, I'm going to tell you something. The hardest part of this entire thing, the hardest part for me is replicating the same thing several times, because that's not how I do mandalas. When I'm doing mandalas, I just go for it. I just draw a bunch of circles and just start drawing something. Now, I will decide I want a 9-section mandala, or I want an 8-section mandala, or I want a 6, or whatever, right? I'll decide that ahead of time. But then when it comes to drawing it, I just start drawing it and just see what happens. When I'm drawing it specifically to replicate something again and again, it's like, this is like, yeah. Anyway, okay. So I am measuring off of one I have done, just so you have an idea. And this one, this ring in the very center is about 5/8 of an inch across from the compass point to the pencil point, about 5/8 of an inch. If you're wanting to replicate it as close to what I'm doing as possible, that's what it is. Okay, so, and it will be easiest, I find, if you spin the paper, especially on small circles. If I spin the paper rather than trying to spin the compass. Okay? All right. So then we're going to take the next ring, which is a little bit bigger, and it's going to be about 3/8 of an inch bigger than that, give or take a smidge. So it's going to be about around an inch. The compass needs to be adjusted again. So around an inch from the point to the lead. Again, I'm going to see if I can spin the paper. So you see it's a little bit bigger. Okay? It's not a huge amount bigger, but a little bit bigger. The next one is just a second. I'm measuring off the one that's done so I can give you fairly accurate measurements here. The next one is about, give or take a little bit, about 1.5 inches between these 2 points. So the main thing is it's just bigger. There's more distance than there is here. Okay? So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to spin the paper. Now when I'm doing these myself, I just do them. I do not spend all this time going, oh, it has to be this much or this much. Okay? I don't do it that way. But you understand, I hope, why I'm doing it this way for you guys. So you can understand where these, where the design, how the design originated. Okay, the next circle diameter or radius is going to be about 1 7/8 inches. Okay, so from here to here, it's not quite 2 inches. And those of you that are metric, I apologize, but I don't know metric enough to be able to do the conversion. Okay, so far we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this is our 5th circle, right? So we have 3 more to put in here. So give me a second, let me get the next one. The next one is going to be just a shade less, just a little bit less than 3 inches, maybe 2 7/8, give or take, doesn't matter. Okay, from here to here, it's not quite 3 inches. Does not have to be exact. Okay, does not have to be exact. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oops, I'm missing one. Did I miss one? Yes, sorry, I missed one up here. Missed one right here, so we got to put that one in. Yeah, so I need one. Is here. Okay, hold on a minute. I got to make sure that I know which one I missed here. Yeah, okay. See, this is what is much more challenging, is replicating something. Don't say it anymore. You've already got the picture. You've already got the picture. Okay, so this one is about 2 1/4 inches. Okay, so between these two, 2 1/4 inches. So you see these first circles in here, these are all close to the same distance apart from each other. It's okay. If they're not, if yours don't look exactly like this, that is perfectly fine. And then out here, we need one more, and that one is going to be about 3 1/4 inches from here to here, about 3 1/4 inches. Okay, and then spin the paper, put your circles in, whatever. So, from beginning to end, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 8 circles, including the outer one. Okay? They do not have to be, I can't tell you enough, that these do not have to be exactly like this. They don't. Give or take, close enough is close enough. You just want a couple of rings that have a little more space, so they're not all completely evenly spaced. It'll be more interesting if you do that. Okay. And that completes the setup. Okay? That completes the setup for laying out. That's what I call the map. Other people can call it other things, but that's what I call the map for this particular mandala. Okay, we got all the rings, we got all the spokes to divide it into all the sections, and now, yes, close enough is good enough. That's right. Okay. Yeah, no, it says we need someone to create a lazy Susan for mandalas. They probably have. Okay, hi Tracy, and anybody I didn't see, welcome. Sorry, I was just having a little wet my whistle. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start laying out the mandala. I'm going to scooch in so you can see exactly what I'm doing, because we're going to work from the center out. So I'm going to start laying her out. Okay? So the first thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to pick any one line in here to start. In the very center. It doesn't make any difference which one it is. Doesn't matter. Any one. And I'm going to draw a pointed oval that begins at the center and ends at the first ring. Okay? Then I'm going to skip 2 lines, and I'm going to do it again. So from the center out, it ends at the first ring. Skip 2 lines, do it again. And if you skip 2 lines, you should be back where you started. Like magic, it works. It works. Okay? All right, so wherever you ended up, we're just going to come here, wherever we ended up. And now from the same center point, I'm going to draw like a teardrop shape, but it's got a fat head on it. Okay? It's got a fat head. And every time I do these, my teardrops come out different. Yours could be really fat or not. They're probably not going to be totally symmetrical. That's fine. Spin it around. Do the same thing around the shape you just did. Okay? And often when I'm drawing shapes like this, I draw them just like this. I'll be sketchy with my lines. And then I go back and take out all the extra lines here in a minute. And do the same thing one more time. Now, if you're going to get all... if you start measuring things and get upset because these big teardrops aren't exactly the same, you're just going to frustrate yourself. You got to go good enough, close enough is good enough. Okay? So we have put in the very center part, and then we just drew a big fat teardrop around it. Easy peasy. Then in the alternate spaces that are blank, I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to just visually by eye put a mark at about the center. Okay? And sometimes it helps if you spin it around so you can look squarely at it. Most of the time I just gauge it and go. So about in the center. You don't have to, do not stress out over this. Close enough is okay. Hi, Marion. Now we're going to come from the center and we're going to repeat this shape right here, this pointed oval. We're going to come in and around and end this time at the second ring. Okay, just like that. I'm going to spin it. I'm going to do the same thing. When I'm doing these on my own, I'm just making a decision and repeating it around the circle. So if I were doing this for myself, then I would have, first of all, I would have just gone, yeah, I think I want something in here, and I would have sketched it in, I would look at it, and I went, yeah, that's okay. And then I would spin it and repeat in those other two spaces. Okay, so like magic, we have a little flower center thing going on. Okay, so far so good. Hi, Tori. All right, next, we're going to skip the big ring. We're going to go, so we're going to skip that and leave that as just a space. And then I'm going to come to this next ring. In my case, it's not very big. There's not a lot of space there. And on each side of each one of these lines, I'm going to sketch in a little circle that is the distance from the top. From the top and bottom are my parameters for how big this circle is. And you know what? Most of the time my circles don't look very circly. Most of the time mine look more oval-ish. And, you know, however they come out, they come out. So, and as you can see, I'm kind of sketching around this a few times. That's just how I do it. You may be able to do it in one shot. That's fine. This is not about perfection. This is about enjoying a process. And there are going to be a bunch of you that after this is over with are going to probably have to go run around the block just to clear your head out, and that's okay. Think about the things we could be doing, and this is probably a good alternative. Good alternative place to put your energy. Okay, so we should have 9 circles. Put your finger on one and count just to make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Ta-da! Success. Total success. Right? Total success. Okay, now we want to put in this goofy looking, we're going to call it a thought bubble, because I don't know what else to call it. We're going to call it a thought bubble. You could call it a paisley, a big fat paisley. You could call it a number of things, but that's what we're going to be using. That's what we're going to draw. Exactly. You could be cleaning house. Hi, Shu. You could be cleaning house. So there you go. All right, now this takes a little bit to kind of get a rhythm on it. But once you get the rhythm, then you just draw it once, repeat it around the circle. If you don't like this shape, you can draw another shape. But I thought it was just fun to create something that was unlike anything else we've done so far. So I'm going to fill the space from this space in here. We're going to fill this up now. This ring right here was only there to give us the height of these circles so that they had some consistency, because it's easier that way. We're going to ignore that circle now, and we're going to work with this one and this one. Okay, so we're working with this one and this one. And we're going to draw thought bubbles in here. And the circle right here is telling somebody a secret, so that's where the thought bubble is going to end. All right, so you can do it a variety of ways. I'm going to just start up here so it's touching the circle right here. I'm going to come around and I'm going to just let that thought bubble it can connect to the circle or not, doesn't make any difference. And then I'm going to come around, leave a little space, a little gap up there, and it's going to come around and it's going to ignore that circle because it's not that circle. It's going to have its own thought bubble. Okay, so it's just coming around like that. Turn the circle, or turn your mandala. Remember, this is the one that's thinking the thought. So we're going to come around, and it's going to think the thought. And then it's going to come around the other way, leaving a gap. See, we had a little gap over there. It's going to leave a little gap here. It's going to ignore that circle because that's not the one doing the talking. And it's going to come around like that. Now, are these going to be different sizes? Yes, they are. But you're just close enough is close enough. And then we're going to repeat that on around the circle. So this is my thought. This is the one doing the thinking. So that's where the little thought bubble is going to end. Keep on going. Just keep on going. Now, if some other image is better for you than a thought bubble, and what I mean by thought bubble is, you know, where you have a cartoon character and they're thinking something, and like in a comic book, that's what I'm talking about. Where you see the words over a character's head. That's what I'm talking. Well, that's what I mean by a thought bubble, in case that was a foreign concept. Could be a big fat paisley too. Okay, and then just keep going. This is the hardest. It's probably the hardest shape of any of them. There might be one more that's a little tricky too. Okay, spin. Keep going. Don't dare look at the chat right now because I'm pretty sure that some of you are really giving me a hard time right now. But at least old Lusty, whatever his name is, hasn't showed up. Sarah is fast. I'm telling you what, that's Sarah. She is one fast girl. Okay, so we put this one in. This is my last little thought bubble thing. And if everything's gone well, guess how many thought bubbles you have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right? Fat paisleys, thought bubbles, whatever. And then you can come in here and you can clean it up if you want to. All these lines are going to get erased out after a while, but I'll just clean this up a little bit just so you can, so it doesn't look quite so messy. My thought bubbles are all different sizes and shapes, but they're close. You know, your eye doesn't pick it up. And if I turn it this way so that it's kind of straight with the world. Pardon me, kind of straight with the world, it helps. Okay. Next, we have a little skinny ring here. So somewhere in here, and it doesn't make any difference where you start, just pick 2 sections. Okay, like that. 2 sections. It doesn't matter where. You can pick any 2. You can do these 2, these 2. It doesn't matter. Just pick 2. And what we're going to do is we're going to start at the circle, and we're going to just make and it's going to be as tall as this ring is. Think of it just like a rounded petal, but it's going to span 2 sections. Okay, it's going to span 2 sections. So I'm just cleaning up a little bit. Like I said, I generally use kind of a sketchy motion, and then I come back and clean it up. We're going to skip the next one. So I'm skipping this one, and I'm picking the next 2, and I'm going to do the same thing. So it starts at the circle. It's as high as the ring. Whatever this distance is, it's that tall. It comes across to the other. It spans 2 sections and ends at the other circle, just like that. Skip the next one, spin your mandala, and I'm going to come and do this one. Okay, so it's that tall. This is probably one of the trickier things for me because I tend to make my, One time I'll make this really slanted, and the next time I'll make it really rounded, this shape in here. So we have 3 of these, okay? You have 3 empty spaces, and in those empty spaces you're going to do the same thing, except they're going to be just the width, or the length is probably a better word, a length of one section only. Spin it around, do the same thing. So you have an empty space, so you're going to put in this petal kind of shape, just like this. Okay, put it in, spin it, and do the same thing in the remaining space. Whew! Who here is glad that is over with? Everybody? Everybody, can I get an amen? So far, I don't think so, Race. So far, I don't think so. Okay. Beth is not. Beth, don't say that. He'll boot you to the curb. Oh, you're not talking about that. Beth's glad this is done. Okay. I'm just teasing. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put in some triangle shapes, but we have to know where they begin and end. So use your eye. Whoops. Use your eye as soon as the camera wants to cooperate. And on this ring right here, where we just did those petal things that we just worked on, I want you to just use your eye and put a mark about in the center all the way around. And so it's going to touch those petal shapes. But you're marking about in half. Use your eye. It's fine. Your eye works. And you sometimes don't even have to spin it. You get good enough at measuring distances with your eye that you just kind of make the marks on around. Okay, so it's close enough. All right, so now we know where the triangles are the legs of the triangle are gonna land. The point of the triangle conveniently is gonna land at this right here. Okay? Yes, use your good eye, Cindy. That's right, use your good eye. Now, just use your pencil and connect the dots that you found to the point of the triangle. Spin your mandala and do the same thing all the way around. Okay? So, dots to the point out here. It's easy to find that point out there. Your triangles may not be exactly the same size, but they're going to be fairly good. They're going to be fairly good. Okay, keep going till you run out of dots, and you've got triangles all the way around. And every once in a while, I will look away, or I'll catch myself looking at something else, and then I get the line completely wonky. So sometimes I just erase it and do it again. Okay. Now, more or less, I do not want you getting a ruler out to do this, but I'm just going to show you, if I can find my ruler. More or less, the sides of the triangles will match up. This one will match up more or less to that. If you turn it, this side more or less kind of mirrors that. They're not going to be exact because it's hand drawn, you see? But it gives your eye a way to kind of make sense out of chaos. So we've restored a little bit of order once we get out to this point, because your eye will now accept the fact that there's straight lines going around, even though they're not perfect. Okay? So your points don't touch your petals. Hi, Galena. Yeah, square mandalas are great. Your points don't touch your petals. I'm not sure what you're asking. I'm not sure what you're asking. Take a screenshot of it if you need it. Let me scoot out a little bit. Take a screenshot if you need it and see if that will. Let me scoot out a little bit more so you get the whole thing. Okay, and I'm just going to leave it here for a minute. You can screenshot it if that helps. Hi, Dana. Good, Tracy. Cool. You can always run the video back. Even in real time, you can run the video back to look at something again. This is what it's going to look like when it's on the background. So I've done exactly what I've told you so far. We have this cluster of petals in the center. We have the circles and thought bubbles. We have these petal shapes where there are 3 big ones and 3 small ones. And then we have triangles that go all the way around. Okay? Just like that. That is what we've done so far. Okay, so moving on. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to repeat this shape right here, that pointed oval. But we have to know where it's going to end. And so it's going to start up here at the intersection of our triangles. And I'm going to come down, I'm going to skip a ring. I know this is going to throw some of you for a loop. Skip a ring, come to the next to the outside ring, and make a mark. So it's about in the center. And repeat that all the way around in every section. So it's about in the middle. But the mark is going on the next to the outside ring, just like this. If yours doesn't, let me say this again and again and again. If yours doesn't look exactly like this one and you made a different shape in a different space, it's fine. I'm only doing it this way so that my finished, for one thing, when my finished mandala pops up here, you can look at it and go, oh, I see how that was accomplished. Okay, but yours does not have to look exactly like that. All right, so we have a beginning point and an ending point, and now we're going to draw this shape that you've done right here. You've already done it twice, actually, here and here. So you just draw it again. Okay. So we have a beginning and an ending. We know where that is, provided you plotted those out somewhere, somehow. Keep going. Just keep going. And yours may seem like it's just too wonky for words because maybe your marks aren't straight up and down from each other. Well, you still can true that up. You can change that. At any point, as long as it's in pencil, you can still change it. Once you put it in ink, it's a little different. It's a little harder to change it. I heartily encourage you to just enjoy the process and don't try for perfection, okay? Perfection is highly overrated. And on top of that, I've fired the mandala police. They are not here with their tape measures and their compasses and protractors to see if you did it exactly correctly. Okay, so there is our pointed ovals that we put around. Again, if you count it, you should have 9. At any point, if you come up with 10 or 8, you might be in trouble. The speckled background, I just used watercolor crayons. I just used watercolor crayons and a brush. I dampened the paper slightly. pick any kind of watercolor crayon, other than don't use an oil pastel. Don't use a water-soluble oil pastel. That's not going to work very well for this. So you want something like a Media Scribble Stick or a Neocolor 2, or the other one I showed was the Lyra, Lyra. Anything that's a watercolor crayon will work for this. And then just use your brush and flick, and it splatters down. But protect your surface, because if you don't, you'll not like yourself. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to kind of repeat the thought bubble, except we're going to stretch it out. So this time we're going to call it a paisley, okay? Or you could call it a teardrop. It's going to start where the pointed oval is here, and it's going to be as tall as this ring is, and it's going to be as wide as the section is. So it's going to go like this. It's going to go up, it's going to go over, it's going to come down, and then it's going to swing back up to create that teardrop shape. In a perfect world, this is going to be nicely rounded. Okay? And I do all of them going that direction. So I think up, around, and put the tail on it. Okay, up, around. This is a form of repetition. Repetition is really good. It's one of the things that your eye will like. So we are repeating this thought bubble kind of shape, just in a bigger fashion, and we will repeat this several more times in the embellishment stage. What I find when I get going on these is usually the first 2 or 3. It's not unusual for me to go back and undo them, because, or redo them is probably the accurate term. Because sometimes it's like, it takes me a minute. It's like those warm-up flowers. It takes me a minute to get my hand working. So around we go. Around we go. This is the last one. Okay. So you can see they're not all identical. They're not all identical at all. But they're good enough. Okay. So the next thing that's going to happen is we're going to have to go the other way. All right, so I'm going to turn my paper, and this is where you get good at, you'll find one direction of these teardrop shapes or paisley shapes or whatever. You'll find one direction. They're easy for you to draw, easier than the other direction. And they're not, it doesn't matter, okay? Doesn't matter. Just have fun. Just draw some shapes all the way around. Draw some shapes. If you don't like this shape, draw a different shape. But, as I said earlier, there's no point in repeating the same thing over and over and over again. Gotta learn something new. Try something new. Try something new. But you have all of these circles that we put in here as your guidelines to give you height and sometimes width for what you're doing. And sometimes I draw them from one direction, sometimes I draw them from a different direction, and sometimes I just change it up. Just depends on, I don't know what it depends on. I don't know what it depends on. It must depend on my mood. I don't know. I don't know what it depends on. Okay, so we now have a pointed oval that has 2 teardrops or 2 paisleys or 2 somethings in there. Okay? Okay. Would it work to use brush out? I don't think so. And the reason I don't think it's going to work with Brush-O is because Brush-O is so highly water soluble that I think you're going to turn your mandala, I don't think you're going to be happy with the coloring results. But you know what? The only way to know is to just try it. It's a piece of paper. Look, piece of paper has two sides, man. If it doesn't work on this side, turn it over and use the other side. Or just if you're not using expensive watercolor paper, which this is not expensive. This is just cheap watercolor paper from Michael's because it's my favorite. You know, it's just get another piece of paper. That's what I do. Okay, so what we have going on here now is we have the last thing. Okay, we're all going to sing the Hallelujah chorus here in a minute. We're going to do this last thing, and this is kind of like a rope border, but it's a different kind of rope. It's kind of a twisted thing. Okay, so what we're going to do now, this is going to be the easiest thing to do, is to use your eye and divide this outer ring into thirds. Give or take. Give or take, okay? So if you're not good at thirds, and I'm not great at thirds, good enough is good enough for me, man. There are too many things to do. There's too many mandalas to draw to get stressed out over, well, this third is not the same size as that third. It's like, well, whatever. That's what you have to tell yourself. You have to tell yourself, whatever. You have to tell that inner critic to get over itself. Get over itself. Yeah, comma stroke, Sarah, a lot of people don't, because decorative painting is not quite as popular as it once was. A lot of people don't know what that is anymore, right? So what we're going to do is, just to make it easy on myself, I'm going to just draw those lines straight up and connect with the ring above. Okay, so just straight up, straight up, straight up. Keep these really light because these are just guidelines. They're just little guidelines. So that we have a shot at making our little twisted rope border, or twisty border. We'll call it a twisty border. So that we have a shot at making our twisty border kind of consistent all the way around. Okay? So that's where we are at this point. See, when you look at this, I want to turn it so that this is right with the world. See, I'm just like you guys. But then that makes the outer border twisty on me, so you just got to get over it, Barb. Get over it, Barb. Okay, we're ready to do the twisty border. Are you ready? This is just not hard. We're going to take the middle, and I don't mark this. I just look at it, and I go, that's about the middle, that's about the middle. Okay, so my twisty border is going to go up and touch that side, come down and touch the other side. And then I just repeat it. Okay, up, down, down. And sometimes my twisty border, gets more pointy. Sometimes it gets more rounded. Just keep going. I like borders on things. I like the uneven border that I put on this one. It's actually a Zentangle border, and I'm going to say this now, and I'll say it later also. Apologies to anyone who is a bona fide Zentangle person, because I take Zentangle designs, and 9 times out of 10, I will not draw it exactly the way they're supposed to be drawn. I always try to, but I'm not so good at following all the steps. And what we do on this one is no exception to that. I will do my best to show it to you as a Zentangle pattern, but we're going to call it Zentangle-like just to be on the safe side, right? So just keep going until you get your twisty border on, and if it goes a little bit above or a little bit outside the circle, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Remember that this is fun, okay? Remember that this is a fun process, not a stressful one. Not a stressful one. If it's if this is stressful for you, then stop doing this one. Stop and go back to a different one. I love the 9 section. I think it's challenging. I think it's fun. I like working in an odd number versus an even number. Okay, so there it is like that. And there it is like that. Okay, see? And that is the layout for this particular mandala. So I'm going to scooch out a little bit, let you see the complete border of everything. If you want to do a screenshot, now's your chance. Just keep swimming. That's right. Thanks, Fiona. Okay, take a screenshot if you want it, because this is your chance to do it. All right, now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to a pen. So you get to choose which kind of pen you want to use. Okay, I'm going to use a glaze pen, and because I've kind of fallen in love with these, and because Beth Salter, who's in the class, made me buy them. I did have glaze pens a long time ago, and I didn't use them, and I let them all dry up, so I had to get new pens. But I've had these for a while, and they're doing quite well. The glaze pens are glossy, and they have a little bit of a raised feel to them, a little texture. So that's the glaze pen. This is the Aqua Lip. Same thing, finer point. This came from Nancy Dale, because Nancy Dale asked me about these, and I'm like, I don't even know what those are. So I have an example of each of these. I have one that is done with the glaze pen and one that's done with the Aqua Lip, and I'll show those to you. There's not a huge amount of difference between them, but if you don't have the glaze pens, use something else. It's okay. Use what you decide to use. I'm going to use purple, and the reason I'm going to use purple is because the way that my background turned out, purple just seemed like a good color to use. So I outlined my entire thing in a colored glaze pen. Okay, so we're only going to start this because, as you could tell there, I have this already done, but I'm just going to get you started. Typically with the glaze pens, you kind of have to, you'll feel, when you depress the pen, you'll feel the ball in the end of the pen, you'll feel that move up a little bit. So it does have a different kind of feel than a regular jelly roll. So I start in the middle. Don't go too fast. And I usually will complete one shape all the way around. This is the glaze pen, which has a fatter point. You don't want to go too super fast when you're drawing with any pen, because you got to give the pen a chance to dispense the ink. This does take a hot second to dry, so you got to keep your hand out of it. Know where your hand is so you're not laying your hand in the ink. So I just work from the center out. I'm only doing the shapes. I'm not incorporating any of the circles, the outer rings, meaning sometimes I'll incorporate some of the rings into the design, but not on this one. So I'm only doing the shapes. Okay, so there's my center shape. All right, and then I'm going to draw it exactly the way that that I laid it out. So the next thing I did after that was I did the circles. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do my circles. And I'm drawing this quicker than I would recommend that you do. Take your time. But I like to do the ink at this point because then I can get rid of all the pencil lines. And my eye's no longer distracted with anything. Okay, so I have all my circles done, and now I get to decide which way is easier for me to draw these thought bubbles. And sometimes it's easier for me to draw toward myself, and then I may spin it the other direction and draw away from myself. I don't know. So we're going to just go this way. Okay, moving on. Good enough, moving on. Right, Race? So we're going to just do the center of this, because by the time I get the next little round of petals, those kind of weird shaped petals that we did, 3 big ones and 3 small ones, you will get the idea about how to do this. And because this is an odd number of sections, sometimes this thought bubble shape is going to touch a point, a petal point, and sometimes it's not touching anything. So just be aware of that. You didn't do anything wrong. That is the way it is because it's an odd number of sections. And because we didn't do exactly the same thing all the way around, we made it unique. Okay, so there is our thought bubble section. It's all Beth's fault. It's all Beth's fault, I'm telling you. Okay. In fact, just, I think it was this morning, I got, see where my stash is. Yeah, this morning I got a fresh infusion of just the black Jelly Roll pens, or the glaze pens, because I also ordered regular Jelly Roll pens. I got these because the black you tend to use up, if you like black, that ink, it uses up quicker, I've found, than with the regular Jelly Roll. Anyway, it's always good to have extras. Okay, so here in this petal area, I'm going to go as far as I can, and then I'm going to stop, and then I'm either going to get another shot at it or I'm going to come from this direction. Doesn't matter. Whatever is convenient for you. And then I'm going to spin the mandala. Sounds like a party game, doesn't it? Spin the mandala. And sometimes, you know, I don't pay any attention to my line. You know, it's like, oh well. I'll always wish I did. And then I fill in the shorter ones. I do the more challenging thing first, for me. That's just how I do it. All right, so there's the center section all completely done. From there, you just work out and do the same thing. Do the triangles all the way around, do the pointed ovals, do the teardrops or comma strokes all the way around, and then do your twisty border. Okay, that is how you do it. You draw it, you ink it the same, I ink it the same way I draw it. Okay? Unicorn spit. Where's Ruth? Where's Ruth? How many years ago was that? Race was at CHA. What was that, 3 years ago he went? And Ruth, N.R. Edwards, that you'll see in the chat sometimes, she wanted to see what unicorn spit was. He went all over that show floor at Creativation looking for unicorn spit. I don't think he ever found it. Anyway, okay, back to this. So we're going to pretend this is done. It's not, but we're going to pretend. All right, let me give you one more opportunity. Those of you that want another screenshot for whatever reason. Okay, I'm going to set it up here. I'm going to let it sit. All right, if you want another screenshot, now is your chance. It does. And we're all going to we should sing the Hallelujah chorus, shouldn't we? Because we got done. Okay, this is your chance for a screenshot. We're almost done here. Okay. Hi, Gail. Sorry, I just saw your name. Okay, coffee's done, so we're moving on. So this is the real one that is completely finished. It does take a little bit for those glaze pens to dry, but it doesn't take too long. I mean, it really doesn't take too long. I was pleasantly surprised at how quickly they dried. So I'm going to come in so you can see what's going on here. You can see all the lines are still there. Okay. Hey, Shelly, Craftin' Mamas. the chat screeches to a halt every once in a while, that's for sure. All right, so you can see all of my lines and circles are there. You can see the lines clear out to the edge. You can see all the circles are there. Everything is there exactly as we drew it just now. And now I'm going to use a white eraser. And this one's kind of cruddy looking. Let's see if we can clean it off a little bit. A white plastic eraser to me is invaluable when you're doing this technique because it won't smear your graphite. But what I want you to see on this is how lightly I have drawn those pencil lines. And does it get a little hard to see with this busy background? Yes, that's why you don't want to go too dark with whatever you put on the background. Why do we do a background like this? Because we want it, because it's interesting. Once you see the color go on this, it starts being affected by what's below it. Again, because we don't want to do the same thing over and over and over. That's the other reason. Okay, so I'm now going to come in here and I'm going to use my plastic eraser. This one I inked last night. I would not have to wait that long to do this erasing step, but that's just to give you an idea of when I did it. Okay. All right, and so then I'm just going to take out, rub out, erase out, whatever terminology you want to use, and we are going to take out all those lines. Miss Shelley, what are you up to? I hope you're doing well. Okay, so just erase out the graphite wherever it is. If you start doing this before your inked lines are dry, you're going to hate yourself and you're going to be doing it again. But typically what I do is I work all the way around in the in one design and then I go to the next one. If you have super delicate paper that you're trying to work on, you have to be more careful. This is a watercolor paper. It's not even expensive stuff at all, so it stands up to the abuse. If you see your background disappearing, then that also is indicative of you might need to adjust the materials that you use. And the only way you know how the materials are going to behave is to try it. You get questions all the time as a streamer or as you know, an instructor or whatever. You get questions all the time about well, will this work, and will that work, and will something else work? And there is absolutely no way that you can know. There just isn't any way to know it until you just try it. And yeah, nobody wants to make mistakes and do something, spend a lot of time on something and have it not work. But you know, the magic is that you'll have things that will show up that you didn't ever anticipate. Yeah. Yeah, Barbara Clark says, hint, wait for the ink to dry and then wait a little bit longer. Yep. It's a good plan. It's a good plan. Okay, so we're going to do with this exactly what I have done with other ones, and that is we're going to do 1/4 of this, and I'm going to show you how to get the color on it, how I put the color on it. So I'm just getting rid of all the graphite. So you can see I'm just working my way out bit by bit, and I usually just leave all the eraser grit on the paper until I get as much erased as I can possibly get erased out, and then I get rid of all the eraser grit at the same time. But I highly recommend a white plastic eraser when you're doing this. Doesn't have to be a stick eraser. That's just what I find is the most convenient. If you're using one of the big Pentel erasers, the big, block erasers, as long as it's a white plastic eraser, it should work for you just fine. So I'm getting rid of the outer circle, and I'm erasing away some of these guidelines that we put in there to begin with. Getting rid of that. I don't have to take them all the way to the edge, but I'm just getting rid of probably a good, 3/4 of an inch. So just keep erasing until you get it all done. And if you miss a spot here or there, you can come back and get it here in a minute. Okay, I think I'm back around to where I started. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of the eraser grit. So Barbara said she found that some of the watercolor erased off. I didn't have that issue with what I used, so it may be, medium, maybe depending on whatever the medium is that you're using. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do, sorry, got a little crazy there for a second. The next thing we're going to use is, I'm going to use Inktense pencils because I like them. And that's what I'm going to use for my adding the color here. And so we're going to do the center section of this, and then I'm going to just do a portion of it. Okay? So far, so good. Get my cheat sheet here so I tell you what colors I used where. And that you do not have to use the same colors, okay? You do not have to use the same colors. I will say that again and again and again. You do not have to use the same colors. Your background's likely not to be the same as mine. Your paper is likely to be warped like this. You just kind of ask it nicely to flatten out for you. Yeah, if you see your work surface, you've gone a little too deep. Gone a little too deep. Okay, the colors I'm going to use are for the basic coloring in, because I'm going to do coloring in, and then I'm going to come back with additional colors, and I'm going to do some shading. So I have a lighter and a darker in every one of these colors. Okay, so I'm going to work with the lighter set first of all, and I'm just going to tell you what colors I'm using to begin with, and then if you have Inktense pencils, you can use them. If you have watercolor pencils, you can use them. If you have something else you'd rather use, you can use it. Colors I'm using: teal green, fuchsia, apple green, sun yellow, and iris blue. Teal green is 1300, fuchsia is 0700, apple green is 1400, sun yellow is 0200, and iris blue is 0900. Okay, so I'm going to take and you can tell my pencils are not very sharp, and I like it that way. So, and I'm going to use a water brush. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a bunch of color in this. I'm going to do all the color in this, and then we'll activate it. Oh, cool. Good for you, Dorothy. I didn't even know that Graphitin had paints. Interesting. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to use the iris blue, and on those 3 teardrop or 3 pointed ovals, I'm just going to put it in here in the center. Okay, notice I am not putting this color over the entire shape. I don't want to obliterate everything that's underneath it. Okay. Then I'm going to pick up the teal color, and this, I'm just telling you this, what I'm doing. You do what you want. So teal green, I'm going to do the same thing, but this time on the bigger pointy ovals. And sometimes if I'm in the mood, I'll put a little out in the tips of those, just because. Then I'm going to use the fuchsia color, and I'm going to put some of that in this big fat teardrop shape that we did around there. I'm just going to put a little bit of that, like so. Okay, so that's what I do. I just color a little bit, and then I stop, and then I activate using the water brush. So I'm going to get my water brush going here like this, so I know that it's dispensing water. The reason I go with this particular water brush is because the water dispenses pretty evenly. But if you have another one you like, a different brand, go for it. Go for it. Okay, so here is our center, so you can see the pigment that I have on there. You'll also notice that there's probably some graphite still left on this. Like, you can see some of it up here. That'll probably get covered up later. I'm not going to worry about it. So let's start with the blue. So I'm going to work one section at a time, and I'm going to activate the Inktense pencil. It's a good idea if you activate all of the Inktense pencil. That way it'll dry permanently. Okay. And then I'm going to go to the next color that we put in, which was the teal. And you may see that some of the pigment or the watercolor or whatever you used below, clearly I got quite a bit on this one. Like, that turned out pretty much teal green. Brain fart. You may see that it may activate some of the pigment from your background, and then other times, like there, you see that little dot? That's from the background. I love it when stuff like that shows through. Your pencils will change as they dry, or the pigment will change as it dries, regardless of whether it's a watercolor pencil, an Inktense pencil, or some other kind of medium that you're using. Okay, like so. And then I'm going to do the fuchsia, and I'm constantly wiping this brush off on this happens to be a napkin, but it could be a paper towel or whatever. Some people use Kleenex to take the water off the water brush. Whatever works is perfect. But by using the glaze pen in this instance, it acts like a little bit of a dam, and keeps the pigment from, kind of helps keep it contained a little bit. And you'll notice there that you're up so close. You would never look at a mandala this closely, but you'll look at it sometimes and you go, well, that wasn't very smooth. That application of color wasn't very smooth. You're right, but it's also being influenced by what's beneath it. So just liquefy that pigment and pull it around the shape, just like that. Okay, that's all there is to it. Hey, Joyce. Okay, Nancy, no problem. No problem. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come out here to these circles. And I'm going to skip this section in here for the moment, and I'm going to use the apple green, and I'm just going to go around the outside edge. Okay, well, I'm on the circle, but I'm just going close to the purple, purple outline. See, and I'm not even being very neat about it. I just scribble it in there, just like that. Scribble it in. And then I'm going to come back to the fuchsia color, and with the fuchsia color I'm going to put that, remember we called these thought bubbles, where the thought bubble comes out of the circle. That's where I'm going to put it. So and because this is such a big shape, I'm putting about a quarter to a third. But notice I don't have a straight line out here. Straight lines are really hard to blend out, so I don't do that. I leave that with a jagged edge on it. Okay, so this is fuchsia. I'm going to do that in every one of them. Decide once, repeat around the circle. That is your mantra. That is your mandala mantra. Decide once, repeat. Decide once, repeat. Okay, so I now have that much done. And now what I'm going to do is use my water brush, and I'm going to activate the color. Your whatever is in your background is going to have a pronounced impact to some degree. It's going to influence how these Inktense pencils look. So just enjoy the ride, because it's fun to see what they do. Okay, so I've got all the green activated, and now I've cleaned off my brush just by dispensing a little bit of water and soaking up all the excess on this little napkin. And now I'm going to work on the thought bubble shapes. So this is coming out much darker than my original. So I may not actually need to put on a second color on this one. I'm going to show you how to do it, but this is coming out much darker. So I may not have to do the shading step on this particular one, but I had to do it on both of the previous ones. So it's kind of like go figure. It's a go figure moment. Okay, so you see, by using something that's a translucent medium like the Inktense pencils are, you can you get to see what's underneath it, and you can get a variation in the color by not coloring the entire thing with the pencil to start with. Okay? All right, so let me quickly do this. We're going to complete the center part of this a little bit more here. We're doing pretty well on time today, so And if you're afraid you're going to get your hand in it and you need to spin the paper the other direction, that's fine. Do whatever is comfortable for you. What's comfortable for your hand? If it starts dragging too much, then squeeze a little bit of water, but squeeze it on the napkin, not on your artwork. You will not be happy if you start squeezing while this is on top of your artwork, because it can, even with a good water brush, it can dispense a whole buttload of water. And then you're like, oh no, now I'm in trouble. Yep, you could be. That's when you have to get a dry paper towel, dry napkin, dry Kleenex, soak up the water, let the section dry below, and then come back once it's thoroughly dry and add something else to it. You could do a similar thing that I'm doing right here with watercolor crayons. You do a very similar thing with watercolor crayons. They just will not be permanent when dry. But if you're going to put it in, if you're going to put your mandala in a journal, or you're going to put it in a frame or something, who cares if it's permanent? Unless your journal gets flooded, which certainly has happened, it's going to be fine. Okay? All right. All right, so we've activated all of those shapes. But you can see on this one, you can definitely see the background coming up through it. Okay? All right, the next section right here, the petals, we're going to do the petals and we're going to do the center. Then I'm going to just work on part of it after that. So for the petals, I'm just going to use my teal color. And I'm going to scrub in a little bit of color. Again, don't let this have smooth, straight line where you stop the pigment. Don't let it be a straight line. Break that up so it's not hard to blend out. And here you have to just kind of look at it and go, okay, how do I want to do this? I know I want the corner of those petal shapes to have more dark. And in this case, I'm going to come across next to those thought bubbles and little circles, just a little bit, okay? If you want something different than that, it's fine. So I'm going to do the same thing, just kind of put in some color, put a little bit around that thought bubble bottom, and keep on going. Make the decision once, repeat it around the circle, okay? Make the decision one time. I can promise you that if you make the decision one time and you repeat it, without stressing out over, well, I don't know what this is going to look like, or I don't know if I'm going to like it. If you keep going until it's finished, I bet you're going to like it. I bet you're going to like it. Even the ones that I really don't like, and I did one last night that I'm like, I mean, I even recorded the whole process. And when I saved the recording, I labeled it fail. Because it is not good. But that doesn't mean I won't like it, you know, in a week when I look at it or whatever. Possible. Anything's possible. Anything's possible. All right, the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to use sun yellow. And in this center area in here, all the space that we didn't put anything on, I'm going to put some of this. Okay, so I'm going to put this in the deepest sections here. And if I don't have space between the thought bubble sections, then I'll not put pigment there. But since I do, I'm going to put it in there. Some places I've got more space than others. No stress, no stress, no stress. Don't worry. Be happy. Don't worry, be happy. coming up. Okay, so I do that all the way around first. And then I'm going to put, let's see, what do I want to do? Let's put some in the, between the sections of that little center motif. But you'll notice that I'm not coloring the entire thing yellow, right? It's not going to be entirely yellow. It's just, there's still some areas where it doesn't have anything but the background. Okay, like that. You can get the, yeah, Nancy answered you there. Okay, so next thing is back to the water pen, the water brush actually. Let's do the yellow first. So I'm going to activate the yellow. I can't believe how bright these are coming up on this particular background. You just never know. You just have to look at it and go, huh, interesting. Because on all the other ones that I did, I had to add additional color. But on this particular background, not needed, not really. I'm still going to show you how to do it, but not really needed on this one. So I'm just liquefying the pigment. Ink tints, the deal is you need to totally liquefy the pigment for it to dry permanently. That also depends on what's underneath it. So in this case, it's raw paper with some watercolor splatters from watercolor crayons. So it should be permanent. Okay, so we have the yellow section is all ready to go. And if there's places in here, I'm zoomed in so tightly that you may see little gaps here and there, but I'm not going to sweat it. Okay, I'm getting rid of the yellow off my water brush, and now I'm going to do the petals out here. These odd petals, and if the pigment starts dragging too much color, then I'll just stop and wipe my brush so that I can avoid turning it all one color. Okay, like that. And then I keep on going. And I don't know if you can tell how quickly I'm working on this, but I am, this is how quickly I do these, even when somebody's not here. Do you have to do them this quickly? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You can take your time. If you want to take 3 days to do this part, that is perfectly fine. Or longer. There is no rush whatsoever. No time limit and no Mandala police because we sent them packing. They are not available for this class. And they've been banished from your house and your art creating space, whether it's a kitchen table, a studio, or whatever. They have been officially sent packing. They're not welcome here. Okay, and one more petal, and then you'll get to see. And you know, if you don't like these, here's the thing. Let me explain this to you. You don't like the colors I've chosen, and you like earth tones, for example, or you like grays, gray and red, or whatever colors you like. Use the colors that you like. Do not feel compelled by any stretch of the imagination to use what I'm using. Okay, so there is our petal the center motif completely finished. All right, we're gonna finish the rest of I'm gonna do like these three triangles, and these two motifs in this rope border this far. Okay, that's what I'm gonna do. So, and then the thing is, what I have done is I've selected, in this case, I selected 5 colors, and then I'm repeating those. If you wanted to use a different color on every single part, you could do that. I just tend to like having them I like to have them. Okay, what's the problem? Sorry, I just looked up. Sorry, I'm just checking the chat for a minute. Okay, it doesn't seem like it's a big bad deal at the moment. Let's see here. Okay, Barbara Clark, I added you as a moderator. So, something shows up and Race isn't available or Clausman's not here, you should be able to whack-a-mole, whack-a-troll. Okay, so moving on. So what I'm going to do is I choose the colors and then I just repeat them throughout, okay? You go over to the 3 dot, you'll see 3 dots beside the name. If you hover over the name, click on the 3 dots out to the right, and then you'll see choices. You'll see choices. Okay. And if that doesn't work, then I'll provided I see it, I'll step in. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is, so I'm going to do these 3. So I'm coming back to the fuchsia because I'm just repeating the colors I have. So I'm doing this just right next to those petals. Okay. And then I'm going to come to the next one like this. And then the last one like this. Okay, and I would do that all the way around. So, but I'm going to finish this whole thing out and then I'll liquefy all the pigment. So I'm going to come back to the sun yellow and I'm going to put sun yellow at both ends of this pointy oval. Like so. That's okay, Race, no worries. Barbara's wielding the big stick. And then I'm going to use the blue. And I'm going to put some blue in here at the center parts of the comma strokes, the teardrops, whatever you want to call them. And then, actually, in reality, I used the teal color on these. So I'm just going to stick some teal on top of that. And then I'm going to use the green, which is not green, this green, apple green, which was the same thing we used up here. I'm going to use this around just here and there. I'm going to use it, but not everywhere. Okay, I'm going to kind of come around those pointy ovals and just put a little bit here and there. I can always add more, but that's what I'm going to do, just add a little bit there. I'm going to come on the other side of those teardrop shapes, like below them, and scrub in a little bit of that same color. So this is going to be a background like that. So we have that going. And then I'm going to use the blue, and at each end of my little, just a little bit, because these are not big shapes, I'm putting a little bit of blue at each end of my twisty rope. Okay, a little bit, not much. You can always add more. All right, so that is what I did. So you can see I'm just using little bits of color, but I'm taking what I used in here and then just repeating it all the way out to the edges. Okay. All right, now I'm just going to liquefy this pigment. It doesn't matter what order I do it in, because that glaze pen is acting like a bit of a little dam. It's kind of holding the pigment in to its space. It's not like traditional watercolor, where if you get one color up next to the next, they form a new color. All right, so we've got that. So now I'm going to come up here and I'm just going to do this to these little triangles. And sometimes I'll get sloppy and accidentally slop some into an area I didn't mean to slop it into. So I just apologize and move on. Apologize and keep going. So we're going to do this one. The reason I started with the yellow is because the yellow is the lightest, in case I had any additional pigment on my water brush. The yellow will get covered up by the fuchsia. But if I started with the fuchsia and I had some of that, and then I went to this yellow, it's going to turn it kind of an orangey color. So not the worst thing in the world, but that's just not the color scheme we're working with here. Okay, so we've got that. So let's come down here to these teardrop shapes. So this is going to be a weird combination of blue and teal, but I wasn't paying attention to my own sample. It happens. It happens. And we are all getting close to being finished for today. Just so you guys know, getting close to being finished for today. I am going to show you how to add some shading in case you want it, in case you need it. But we're almost finished with this. And then we will do the completion of it I'll show you all the rest of the steps that I used for this one. I'll show that to you on Friday. During the regular edition of Drama Free Friday, we're going to take it over. We're going to take it over. Okay, so we've liquefied now our rope. So all we have left to do is background. Yep, it's true. They do need to get a life. Most of the time, if you just ignore them, I mean, sometimes you have to get rid of them, but for the most part, you just ignore them and move on. And the thing is, you just don't react to them. Get rid of them. Get out the bam hammer. Whack a troll, move on. And once in a while you'll make a mistake and you'll bam ham somebody that didn't need to be bam hammed. But not so often. Not too often. Okay, so we're just about finished here. So I hope you have enjoyed the process of doing a 9-section mandala. As I said, it's one of my favorites. If you haven't tried it, I hope you do. If you don't have a circle protractor, it's a good thing to have. If you have a regular protractor, you'll just have to be a little more creative with it to do that. Okay, so that is exactly the process for adding the color to this. And on this one, you're going to see a lot of that background showing through. It didn't on this one. It didn't on this one. See all that watercolor background? It's all still there. On some of the two of the other ones that I did, it did liquefy the background. But there's still the variety that comes through it. So it just depends on what you've used, and there's so many variables. The paper, the specific pigment that you used underneath and on top. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk briefly about if you need to add any shading, which this one really doesn't need it, but we're going to talk about it anyway. And by telling you that it doesn't need it, what I'm saying is that you can see variation in the color. It's not, everything isn't just one flat color. If it was, or it was too light, like this one, for example, when I did this one, everything was so light and so much the same color. And this one was scribble sticks in the background, and this one was Neocolor too. So they're just different pigments. So this was more stable than this was. This tended to move a lot more. Let's see if I can. You see how that's moving a lot more? There's still some of it in the background, but it's tending to move a lot more. So when you activate the top layer with the water, it's making that move. This, it hardly touched it. So, okay, so let's say that you need to add a little bit of something. So what I do is I just go through my pencils, whatever I'm using, and I just find a darker shade of those pencils, a darker shade of whatever's down here. So for the blue, I chose iron blue because that's a darker color. Iron blue is darker than what? Iris blue. Yeah, so that's what I chose. And this is, hang on a minute. Let the camera settle down here a second. There we go. So this is Iron Blue 0840. In the sections where the teal was, I used Aquamarine 1220. You do not need the same colors. I'm just telling you. I'm just going through this as an example. For the yellow section, I used Sienna Gold 0240. In the fuchsia section, I used Mauve or Mauve 0740. And in the apple green section, I used Hooker's Green, which is 1520. Okay? All right. Yeah, if you use the Inktense from the block and you flick the background, yeah, it's going to stay put. Yeah. But what I'm after is I'm after the color to interact. So that's what I want it to do. Okay, so in the middle here, I'm just going to show you just a couple things and then we're going to call it a day. So I'm going to use the iron blue because we have 3 blue sections. I'm going to put the tiniest little bit in here because I really don't need it. Okay, a little tiny bit of iron blue. And then in the teal section, I'm going to put a tiny little bit of green aquamarine. Now this is where it's helpful if you sharpen the pencils a little bit. Mine are pretty dull. So you can see that that now has another layer of color in there in the center. And then I'm going to do this exact same thing that I did before, which is to use the water brush to liquefy it. But I'm trying to be careful now that I don't drag that super dark color all over the entire shape. And when you're in little tiny shapes like this, it's much more challenging to control. Although I find it fascinating to set up challenges for myself and then see if Like, well, what if I shaded this whole thing with black? What would that be like? You know, and sometimes it's like, oh, that was a bad decision. And other times it's like, oh, wow, I never thought about doing that before. And it's the greatest discovery. Doing mandalas, in my opinion, is one of the best ways that you can learn to get acquainted with your art supplies. Sienna gold, let's put a little bit of sienna gold out here just so you can see how it affects this yellow. So I'm putting it in the sections where, like the crevices, like the deepest parts. So I'm not putting much, a little bit. Okay, make sure that your water brush is clean, and then just activate that pigment. And you can do this any place you want, or if you don't want, don't do it. Just have fun. No rules. Remember, the mandala police are gone. It's just us. It's just us having fun. Sticking our heads in the sand, pretending the world is totally sane and everything is perfect. Because it's a good thing to do. Once in a while. It's a good thing to do. Okay. And that takes me all the way around back where I started. So by having that, you can really see it on the yellow here. By having that extra layer of color, you get more movement in the mandala. Okay, cooperate with me. Thank you. Come on, be nice. Be nice. Be nice, Miss Camera. As finicky as this camera has gotten, it must be female. And I can say that because I am one. There we go. Race could not get away with that. Neither could Clausman. So I'm going to just tilt this a little bit just so that this is straight with the world, huh? There we go. Okay, so you can get the idea. Oh, wow. You want to do this on your ceiling, around your ceiling fan. Holy moly. Whew. I wouldn't even do that. It'd be great, but man, oh man. It's going to be a job and a half, man. Okay, so there is the idea of this section, this part of this. So what's going to happen next on Friday is we will jump right into doing all of the embellishment. So we're going to take it to this place. So we're going to jump into the embellishment, all the little stuff there, and then we're going to work on the border. Okay, so this is all about the border. Those of you that don't like unusual shapes, not symmetrical shapes, this might challenge you, but that's a good thing. You need to be challenged. It's good. And then when it is mounted in the book, which is the way I choose to display these, this is how it looks in the book. All right, come on, camera. Come on, sweetheart. Oh, see, I guess I said bad things to my camera. Okay. It is going to just be contrary. All right. Sorry, you guys. I know I'm driving you crazy. We're just going to stay right here. Every once in a while, things go a little wonky. Technology gets a little wonky. It just is what it is. So here's what it looks like when it's mounted on black. Okay? Roughly the same colors. The background's different on each one of them, but that way you can see what it looks, how it looks. Okay. All right. That being said, we're going to quit for today. Any final questions? If you do, pop them in the chat. It's true, Debbie. You can't say bad things because they get even. They get even. Yes, they do. Hi, Shelley. Hi, Linda. Okay. You are welcome. Okay. I don't see any questions popping into the chat. Okay. All right. Everybody got it. Hi, Ivy. I just saw your name in the chat. Okay. I will see you on Friday. So if you want to work along with me, you need to get your mandala caught up to this point with the color. You want to get all of the color on it and have it completely dry. I will see you Friday. Thanks, everyone. I will see you Friday at the regular time for Drama Free Fridays, so it will be 2 p.m. Eastern. I will see you then. Remember to get creative today because you know it's easy. And I will see you before you know it. Bye, everybody.